All right, guys, now it's time to continue the all-decade team and your selections. Let's remind everybody and also remind you guys of where we are from last week. Jonesy and Sharpie selected our 6 defensemen and 2 goaltenders. Apparently, Chicago was well represented.
Yeah, obviously Sharpie was involved with that.
Homer much?
Yep, no question. Yeah, you got to love Sharpie.
There it is.
Yep, he's very dedicated to his team.
Yep, he's loyal.
Yep. Which we probably might be too.
Yeah, it's understandable. Let's put together our 4 lines of forwards. We're looking at the years 2010 right up to the present. Biggest impact players. And JR, I want to point out from listening to you, you weren't getting specific with positions. You just wanted the best players out there.
Yeah, I think it's really hard. I think the centermen have dominated the best players in the game. I say that because we'll show you some of the guys that are on this list, but I'm going to go with my first inkling of the first line, which I think everybody should agree with. Sidney Crosby, right down the middle. I don't think there's been a player since Wayne Gretzky that's affected the National Hockey League as much as Sidney Crosby's cups, awards, everything you can ask for in a captain is Sidney Crosby. Number 2, you can't, on the wing, Alex Ovechkin, the best goal scorer that we have seen since Wayne Gretzky, Brett Hull. But the only guy I think has a chance to catch Wayne Gretzky's goal record, which is an amazing thing to talk about. 8 or 9 50-goal seasons, probably get another one this year. Now Stanley Cup winner. And I'm going to go on the other side with Patrick Kane. This guy continues to be one of the most electrifying, one of the best goal scorers, one of the best playmakers, one of the most feared guys in the National Hockey League in terms of defenseman scare. That's what Kane brings. And he's won cups, he's won MVPs, he's done it all. So my first line, Crosby, Ovechkin, and Kane.
I'm not going to argue. Normally we don't agree on everything, but in that situation there, JR, I agree with you 100%.
I love it. See, we're starting off good.
Easy. I'm with you. Too easy.
Yeah. My second line now, there might be some arguments there. Well, let me know as I continue on. Let me know what your thoughts are. But I go Andrei Kopitar. No position in particular. But Kopi's won Selke, he's won cups in LA. He's quietly getting it done every single year. He's 4th now in career points in LA Kings history, over 900. I love him in my second line. Evgeny Malkin. Travesty he was left off the top 100 players in the National Hockey League. It's a joke. I mean, what were they thinking not leaving him on there? Winning scoring titles, winning cups, being a monster in the postseason. I love everything about Gino's game. And my third guy, Patrice Bergeron.
Wow.
Mr. Perfect
on
the perfection line. Just does everything well, winning Selkies. His number 37 will be up in the rafters at some point, the TD Garden Arena there in Boston, along with all those other jerseys up there. So I think those 3 guys have a place in my second line.
It's a great second line. You look at all those guys. I agree with you with Malkin. He's one of my favorite guys to watch because he brings everything: grit, tenacity. He's mean, scores goals. He's an assist guy. He's always up there in penalties. I mean, that's my type of player. He's an old school type player. Kopitar, remember Wayne Gretzky called him during their cup runs the 3rd best player on the planet.
In the world, yeah.
3rd best player on the planet. I mean, when Wayne Gretzky tells you you're in the top 3 best players
it's pretty impressive.
on the planet, then you have to start listening and paying attention. I think Kopitar has proven that he deserves to be on this great call. And how can you not have Bergeron there? You want to talk about one of the most intelligent, one of the most creative, best leaders. He's won the Selkies, won the Stanley Cup. It's a great second line. Totally agree with it. So the third line becomes a little bit harder.
Hold on. Let's just review.
Oh, we want to review? Good.
Review the top 2 lines. We seem to have approval across the board here with these picks. Ovechkin, Crosby, Kane. Well done, JR. Also to you for the second line here, Ace, Kopitar, Bergeron, and Malkin. All right, 2 lines left. Let's kick off the third, JR. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little outside the box. I know it's the decade team, okay, but I think a couple of these players have done things that have transcended the generations and transcended the decade aspect. And they've been so good in this decade, but I still think maybe 2000, 2010, they were their best, but they're still unbelievable since 2010. Joe Thornton comes to my mind right away. You talk about a guy who has 1,600 games. He's 14th in all-time points. He's 8th overall in assists, and he's still playing the game. He's a first-ballot Hall of Famer without question. He's one of the best leaders. When I played with him, he's one of the best leaders and one of the most loved guys that I've ever played with. I'm going to go on the other side and say Steven Stamkos. How can you not say Steven Stamkos? I know he hasn't won a cup yet, but he's a guy that has scored 60 goals, He's known as one of the best goal scorers and one of the best leaders in the game, so I'm going to go with Steven Stamkos. And I'm also going to go way off the grid here again, too, with Patrick Marleau. Patrick Marleau has shown the. Yeah, I know. Hey, listen.
Wow.
Hey, listen.
I love you, Patrick.
Yeah, Patrick has shown true professionalism in the way that he's played. Over 550 goals, I think, is his longevity. And again, what he's meant to San Jose, what he's meant to a lot of young players. He's just, again, another player who's played 1,500 games. So I'm going to go off the grid, and I'm going to throw on a guy that maybe I don't like so much, or don't care for so much personally, but professionally, the guy's a stud, Patrick Marleau.
No, he is, and it's so rare to find two players going 1 and 2 in the same draft, still playing. Like 20 some odd years later, how rare is that?
Yeah, and have an effect on the game.
It's crazy, right? Yeah. And usually when you play that long, it's because you've won. But they haven't won cups. I mean, they've won Olympics, they've won world championships, but they haven't won cups yet. So that just tells you something about how they are as people, as individuals. The fact that organizations still want to have these guys around to be able to have an impact on the younger players. Because if they weren't those kind of guys, there's no chance, PB, they'd get that extra third, fourth, fifth chance to stay in the league.
Bringing us to the fourth and final line, and I'm picturing you guys going through this and getting to this point of your selection and realizing this is the hardest one because you're going to leave off, no matter what you do, going to leave off some awesome players that you respect and admire quite a bit. So for this final round, let's go back and forth. Let's alternate. And who would like to kick it off?
I'll start. I'll get started with Nikki Backstrom. Nick Backstrom is a player that I think is very underrated. I thought when Coach Trotz had him, he had a chance to win a Selke. And people were just seeing the assists, and they were seeing him play with Ovechkin feeding those one-timers. They didn't really appreciate what he brings to the table day in and day out in terms of his 200-foot game. But he's one of the most smart, intelligent Swedish players I've seen come around in a long time, period. And the way he's able to make plays consistently, JR, the last 10 years, like he's been an integral piece that Washington Capitals team.
That's actually a really good call because I'm sitting here thinking Tavares maybe in the middle. I mean, Tavares has been one of the most dominant players, and a lot of the times with a lackluster team in the island. He's always put up the points, always put up the goals. But you look at Backstrom, it's a great call because you wonder if Ovechkin would have been scoring as many goals if he didn't have a playmaker like Backstrom. I think Backstrom is probably the most underrated star in the National Hockey League for what he does. His talent, his playmaking ability, how smart he is, how reliable he is. It's a great call, I think, on that side. I'm going to go on the other side, and I'm going to take Marian Hossa, a first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion. Here's a guy who's been in the finals, 4 or 5 times. He's won 3 cups. He to me epitomizes a full, hard-nosed, he can do anything type of game. He was so hard to play against. One of the heaviest bodies on the puck. When you tried to get him off the puck, it's almost like you were trying to move Mount Everest. He is just absolutely a bull. They call him the Hoss for a reason. One of the best defensive forwards I've ever seen, and one of the best leaders I've ever seen. So I'm going to go with Marian Hossa on my wing as on the fourth line.
I'm with you on that. I mean, you think about Jonathan Toews' game, how it's been impacted by not having Hossa there. Hossa brought so much to the table playing with him. They were a dynamic duel, these two. And the fact he went to a cup final with Detroit, cup final with Pittsburgh, won cups in Chicago. I mean, you can't forget the impact he's had on those teams. But I think my third guy, speaking of cups, is Phil Kessel. Phil Kessel came from Boston, went to Toronto in the fishbowl. Talk about playing with a guy playing with like no centers whatsoever. Like it was Phil Kessel and maybe Bozak, and that's nothing against Bozak. He's won a championship with St. Louis Blues, but I mean, come on, like seriously, this is Phil Kessel here, a 30-goal scorer every single year. Goes to Pittsburgh, fits in nicely with the Penguins, wins multiple cups, and then he's seen as a guy that needs to bring that little extra X factor out to Arizona to push him over the top.
You don't think and I know he was a big part of those cups, but you don't think he's Malkin and Crosby are going to get more of the accolades and the props for winning cups?
They would because it's their team. But we think about the HBK line. I mean, that's not HCK line.
That's a tough one for me.
HEK line. I mean, HBK line. There's Bonino and Hagelin. I mean, what are those guys doing now? Those are nice, serviceable parts, but those guys aren't driving lines like how Phil Kessel did.
I don't mind it. I don't mind Kessel. I'm a big Kessel fan. I don't mind it. I think, he was rated the most overrated player.
He was.
But you don't love it. It seems like you don't love it.
I don't love it. I'm okay with it because Phil Kessel is the real deal.
What do you love? Talk to me.
I find it hard to leave off Jonathan Toews, a guy who was, captain serious. He's won so many Selke trophies. He's been one of the most dependable players. Obviously led 3 Stanley Cups in Chicago. He's just a true ultimate professional. It's tough to leave him off this list for us, and it's tough to leave Tavares off there. It's you can't have everybody, right? But the fact that we don't have Tavares and Toews on this list right now is totally blowing my mind. But I guess what we got is what we got, and I still think it's pretty special. It's a pretty special 4 lineup.
Let's take a look at what we do have, the 4 lines here. Nice job voicing who you think would have been the next 1 or 2 guys on. Ace, how about you?
Well, I'd like everyone that's on there right now. I was thinking maybe a guy like Getzlaf, maybe only because he's won a Stanley Cup, and he's a player that makes everyone around him better. But I can't argue with taking anybody off this list.
Which JR pick would you take off?
Listen, if I had another opportunity, maybe Brad Marchand. How good Brad Marchand has become a player.
But he hasn't played a lot.
He hasn't been the type of player that he has been the last 3 years.
Right.
So where is he from 2010 to 2015? But Brad Marchand right now, is one of the most dynamic players in the National Hockey League, which should get consideration. But
if you had your eraser out, would have been Kessel?
It's the all decade.
My eraser would have been Kessel.
All decade, not all half decade.
Your eraser goes to who?
I like how everyone's situated right there. Maybe Patrick Marleau, maybe. I'd maybe bump Patty Marleau off of there.
Yep.
But I like everyone on that list. I can make an argument that every guy on that list deserves to be on that list.
I can tell a lot of thought went into it. So, guys, very well done. It was fun to listen to you there.